Hey, welcome to the sit down. I'm your man Rod Love, and with me I have my special co-host, none other than Sister Wynn. How you doing tonight?
I am doing well. What about yourself?
I see you styling the brim tonight. You taking Dr. Light's night.
Yes. Trying to keep up with Doc with the hat.
And Dr. Light, how you doing this evening, brother?
I am fantabulous.
Fantabulous. Okay. Hey, you know Fantabulous after the Super Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody thought it was going to be a rout. Well, no, I take that back. People thought it was going to be a better game than it was.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm happy just the way it turned out.
I am too. I'm so proud of those Eagles.
They did it. Hey, and then you know what? We also have one of our own that we can be proud of, and that was Jalen Carter.
Jalen Carter, yes.
Hey, Jalen Carter from Apopka.
APK.
Hey, now he's a Super Bowl champion.
Oh,
That's the second one.
Yeah.
What do you mean, second one?
What's the first one?
Well, Flash, Apopka, Warren Sapp.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
We give it up to Sapp, too. We were just talking about the here and now, but yeah, Warren Sapp is one, too.
Yeah.
What, Tampa Bay? Was he in
He was with
Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But boy, that Super Bowl, you didn't know what to expect. The first quarter, I said, okay, hold those Kansas City Chiefs down. Then the second quarter, I was like, okay, these boys are for real. And you know what? They were going after Mahomes so bad that you thought he had robbed somebody.
Yes.
That's what I told my wife. Now it's funny, man, but I'm in that space in my life where I sat here yesterday listening to my wife watch the Super Bowl. And she was screaming and all that stuff, and I was
going for, Doc?
Huh?
Who was she going for?
She just enjoying,
Oh, okay.
So
you got to go
a lot
for
of
team.
a lot of it, like she didn't grow up with sports, so I help her to understand like basketball and football and stuff, because in Jamaica they just play soccer. Till the bobsled team came along, but that was.
But that's just like when you look at NFL around the world, don't consider NFL football.
Right.
No.
Is that soccer to them?
Well, yeah, soccer.
No,
I mean, like Doc was saying.
No, it's not.
No?
It's not football. Football is with that round ball. They call it the beautiful game.
Yeah, but
The
it's
beautiful
soccer.
game.
I mean, you look all around the world, and soccer is an incredible sport that they call football.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
Yeah.
they wasn't letting Saquon Barkley get a lot of carries and touches either.
But
They
you
were
know what?
holding him back.
But you know what? They may have shut him down, but they wasn't able to hold the rest of the team down. And Saquon, if that strategy worked so that he was able to get a Super Bowl ring,
So that was your decoy.
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But remember, he could have broke Eric Dickerson's rushing record, but they held him out of the game so that he didn't get hurt going into the Super Bowl.
Yeah. But Jalen's teammate that came from Alabama, he played an awesome game and have a
Who was that?
nice game. Oh my goodness. I call him a little skinny man, but
What position? What position he played?
I want to say wide receiver.
Oh yeah, I
Wide
mean
receiver, tall, skinny one.
they were catching everything that was thrown in the vicinity.
Yes.
I think they had glue on them gloves.
I'm glad they did.
Some stick 'em.
That's what I'm saying. Doc, what you know about that, Doc?
I played a little bit.
Yeah, but
I ain't played the level you played at, but I used to be a football fanatic, so
Doc, but Miss Queek wouldn't know about that stick 'em.
No,
Yeah.
I wouldn't know about that
All
one.
you had to do is hold your hand out there and throw the football, and that's
and it's stick. It's illegal to have it, but people would find a way to get it on their hand. This was before everybody started wearing gloves,
Yeah.
and they would have it. So if they touched the ball, it stuck to it.
You're right.
So,
Hey.
but that's illegal in the game,
It's days to get it off your hands, man. Hey, but speaking of that, and once again, congratulations to the Philadelphia Eagles. And also, Kansas worked hard to get there, but
Mhm.
some of what's taking place with Kansas right now is all of the breaks that they got throughout the season. I mean,
Yes.
if you're a Kansas City Chiefs fan, don't hate me for this, but
Well,
I'm just speaking the truth.
well, it's like I explained to my wife. Okay, and when you look at the dynamics of football, you have a rise and a fall. You always have a rise and a fall in a team. And with Mahomes, them, they've been contending for the Super Bowl in contention, serious contention for at least the last 6 years. That ages those guys. Okay, so they've won it, and in the process, they are now older and more experienced. But
Mhm.
what I saw yesterday when I was looking at it, I saw maturity and experience get outplayed by speed and youth. And
You know
if
what I
you
also
Yeah.
all
saw? But Doc, know what else I saw though? I saw hunger.
well, young cats tend to be hungry.
Yeah, they really do.
That will
And,
drive it.
They really
yeah,
do.
and nothing against any of them, but they just were in two different places. You know,
Mhm.
Mahomes them they played based on what they knew.
Right.
Okay, the Eagles played on what they wanted.
Mhm.
They wanted it that bad.
It's
So
a
they threw
balance.
everything. They threw all their skills, their speed. They threw everything they could at these veterans who,
Yep.
by knowledge, uh, could beat them, even though they were younger. I bet you if
But,
you look at the team, the average age of the teams, they're very different.
but if you
Yeah.
look at, a lot of times teams and coaches are looking for experienced players that
Mhm.
have been there before that knows how to temper getting there. But
Mhm.
then the
Right.
other side of it is you got guys, and it's almost like Deion Sanders said, when he goes recruiting, he's recruiting guys that are hungry.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah.
Dr. Nelson kind of said it best. I was up watching his son play basketball,
Mhm.
and Dr. Nelson said, you know, his son loves putting on the jersey,
Mhm.
but the other teams that come and they come from all these humble beginnings,
Mhm.
those kids playing to get out of the hood.
Mhm.
There's a
Yes.
difference.
There
And,
is.
and, and so,
There is.
yeah, none of those guys that played in the Super Bowl last night are living in no hoods. But what I'm saying is, Philadelphia Eagles, they were hungry to get to a place that either they've never been or they haven't been there in a long time. I don't remember, Doc, when the last time the Eagles been to the Super Bowl.
Actually, was it a
A
couple
few
of
It was,
years
years
ago.
ago? Yeah,
Yes.
because they were playing
yeah.
Kansas City, and Kansas City ended up taking, and I was hurt then. That should have been us back then, but that's okay. We got it now.
Well, no three-peat. No three-peat.
Yeah.
Yep, that's out the window.
Yep.
But think
And so,
about it. Look at how they've dominated.
They really have.
but look at how they made Mahomes run for his life last night.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
think they sacked him twice in a row one time.
Yes.
yeah. Every
Yes.
time I went in the great room and walked through,
Mm-hmm.
and he was up on the screen. He was running for his life.
Running for his life. Running for his life.
Yeah. So
We got all this technology, if I just go ahead and say, hey Google, how many times did Kevin Mahomes get sacked last night? That'll tell you my Google's not working. Hey Google, how many times did Mahomes get sacked last night?
ESPN. Mahomes was sacked 6 times, the most he has taken in any game of his career, regular season or playoffs.
yeah, they beat
Six times.
Six
they
times.
beat that
Ooh, they put it on it. They put it on it. Well, that front
So
line for the
so what
Eagles
was y'all
playing.
what was y'all take away from that halftime show?
Before you go there, Doc, right before you go there, because I meant to do this in the opening of the show, but I want to congratulate my college football coach,
Okay.
who has been nominated by Governor DeWine, the Ohio governor, to become the lieutenant governor of the state. And everybody's asking, okay, how did all this take place?
Mhm.
Well, when J.D. Vance, who was a United States Senator,
Mm-hmm.
when he became vice president, an individual who was the lieutenant governor got appointed as, you know, the sitting United States Senator. So now, once again, I want to say congratulations to Coach
Hey.
Jim Tressel.
Congratulations.
A lot of people know him as being a great football coach. He's mostly known
Mm-hmm.
as the Ohio State head football coach.
Okay.
But before he was that,
Mhm.
he was Youngstown State's
Oh.
head football coach. And that's that first rock with that university. So he was a heck of a coach. But I tell you what, something that he is greater than that coach. Man, just an incredible human being to have young men come through the doors of that university
Mm-hmm.
constantly, coming from all walks of life.
Mm-hmm.
And he was able to mold a lot of us
Mm-hmm.
and mold us to the extent, I mean, a lot of us came from single parent homes and you know, some just humble beginnings. I mean, you can talk about where you come from, but it's not all about that. It's where you go.
Correct.
And
Right.
this guy would deal with just about anything, but one of the things he would not tolerate
Mm-hmm.
is he wouldn't tolerate you not giving yourself a chance.
Oh.
And,
Oh.
and I used to think, how he gonna get mad at me about me?
We are our own worst critic.
So
But
it much deserved, but once again, congratulations to Coach Jim Tressel. The state of Ohio got the right man for the job.
but you know, a lot of this stuff is really making me very introspective as well. And I want to say this: if you want it bad enough in America, you can have it, re- regardless of what opposition you face. If you want it bad enough, you can have it. What we have now is a lot of people in society feel that they are entitled to or owed success,
Yeah.
and you are not.
Now, go back to what you talk about when you talk about giving out participation awards.
Oh, yeah, you know, and that's it. You know, you now have young adults in their mid-20s, early 30s whose parents go to job interviews with them and things like this. When did it stop being okay to grow up, fully become an adult? I was grown at 17. Okay, I was doing what now 40-year-olds are doing just for the first time at 17.
But Doc, before you go into that, let's go into this because we're going to talk about responsible fatherhood. But I like the theme that we're on right now. And Sister Wynn, I want you to give your perspective, and I also want to say in advance, I apologize because I'm not trying to get on your wrong side. But where I'm going with what Doc has said is, I look at where we're at right now, and unfortunately, we're at a point in our history where you see more single parent homes, and the head of the household, particularly in the Black community, is a Black female.
Yep.
And one of the things that I see that is very problematic and crippling is Black women continuing a level of nurturing boys that become men to the point that it cripples them as men.
Yes. It's, I mean, with the son, you do nurture, but it comes to a point where you're providing the love to be that man. That's when you need to turn to your husband or some.
Oh, okay. Now you said something like that. You say you are providing love, right?
Yes.
If you love your child, you structure discipline to shape him for success. By allowing him to be to get away with things, not be held accountable, you are not loving him.
No,
You're
I'm-
enabling
go
him
on.
to
Okay.
become not you.
And yeah, because quick.
Don't take this. It's not personal. I'm sorry.
Because, see, I know your husband, and Alvin not tolerating that. Alvin know how to put his foot down.
But
But
Listen,
but I'm saying this is
go ahead.
no. Go ahead.
I have seen single moms try to discipline and say, hey, there's going to be consequences for your action. But that child is to a stage now, to a point where what she's saying doesn't even matter.
Mm-hmm.
It's like in one ear and out the other. And you
Y-
sit back and you be
You know
like,
why?
Did
No boundaries. See, when he was 6 and cussing, you thought that, oh, JJ out there, he's just good, man. JJ just cussed that nigga out.
yeah.
Or what? Excuse me for that.
But you can't wait till
we,
they're 13.
right. It's like trying to dig the tree up that done grew up in the middle of your living room.
Right.
You should have cut that out when you saw it spring up like a weed.
Yeah. You are absolutely correct.
You should have cut it then.
Yep.
And you should have
For
instilled.
those of you who are watching the sit down, we welcome you to join the conversation. You can dial in and let us know your perspective. That phone number is area code 407-921-6195. Once again, join the conversation because we don't have all the answers, and I'm certain that some of the answers that you have out there definitely contribute to this conversation.
Yeah.
But that phone number, once again, is area code 407-921-6195. I'm sorry.
It's like this for me. I was raised by a mom that demanded respect and had an expectation of how I was to behave. Do you know I never cussed in front of my mom? I think she heard me, but she walked into the situation. She heard me one time in all of my life. And that's how much reverence and respect I had for her. That I never cursed at her or raised my voice or anything. When she started fussing at me when I was an adult, I said, "Oh, time to go home," and I leave.
So Doc, though, I mean, just laying it out there because I wanted to put it out there, and Miss Wynn, it wasn't even apples to apples with setting this up with you because I know your husband, Alvin. When I say I know, and I know all your children too, so I know Alvin know how to put his foot down. But from a perspective where you have single moms in the home, I see that, and don't get it wrong. My mom was a single mother, and she put her foot down, put the broomstick down, everything. We understood. Yeah, she laid it down, but that's a difference from what I'm seeing now.
But wait, because you saying something to Miss Quee, but her dynamic is different. She's got what? The man in the home.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so his presence alters the behavior in that whole house.
Okay, what about the father?
Okay, but now
that's not in the home, but he's still critical in the child's life, or the ones who are not present in their children's lives. What a detriment that makes. And what we're doing is we're rolling this all up as it relates to responsible fatherhood, and we talked about before the evolution of being a responsible father and evolving to be that dad. You know, anybody can be a father.
Correct.
yeah, because I definitely want us to get on to the 5 skills you must master to be a responsible father, because it's not a magic formula, but there is a roadmap. And there are key specific things you must do in order to become a responsible father and know what your duties are. And a lot of people don't know what the duties of a father are.
But how do Doc? And I don't want, because you started this, but you know, you have a lot of people out there that know they got some problems, but they don't know what kind of help to ask for.
Yep.
And so when you started this thing out, Doc, I really like that theme from the perspective that we have a lot of single mothers out there, white, black, red, blue, whatever you want to call. But a lot of those mothers don't know what help they need for their children, and in particular. And we have Walter Smith who's on staff with responsible fatherhood, who understands he's not a lawyer, but he understands a lot of the laws that relates to co-parenting,
Yes. Yes.
child support, things of that nature. But here's the thing: when you have a single parent mother and she has a child that needs children, and she knows that she needs help, and she instinctively know that the help that she needs is the help from that father. But, and I'm framing this up, I'm almost writing the movie. But the mother and the father got issues with each other. And so she's not gonna ask him, can you please help with your children before we lose them? Because maybe she don't know how. And Doc, I'm gonna pass the baton because this part is where you're cranial at, but what if she doesn't know how to ask her children's father for help because maybe they just don't have that kind of relationship. Maybe the relationship they have is always going at each other. But then on the other side, people can say, well, why can't the father recognize that the mother, the child needs help? So Doc, take it from there, man.
Well, one thing I'm going to say, and this is controversial, but it's women that will tell you this. We've got to stop seeing women as helpless victims in this equation, because oftentimes we are framing it in such a way that we see women as victims of men instead of being the participants and adults that they are making a choice. So, and this is why for everybody involved, him and her, they know, you know, that sex does what? What does it make?
Babies.
Okay. So the likelihood of having a child is very high when you have sex. I don't care what protection you take, all protection fails at some point, has the potential to fall. So you have to be ready. But see, the whole thing is, the whole thing though, Ron, is until society makes these behaviors unacceptable and untenable, we're going to continue to have what we are having, which is people who are unwilling to accept the responsibility of parenting and co-parenting together, regardless. Because we come in.
You're right. I agree with you. I agree with you.
We come in
society. But you said society. Let me throw another little cog in there.
Mm-hmm.
From a cultural standpoint, do you think culture has anything to do with this?
No.
You talked about society.
No.
What,
because
okay,
we become, and I said this earlier, what happens through propaganda in this country is we become the role models or the showcase for anything that's negative, any societal outcomes that are negative, COVID, AIDS, single parenthood, when it's just as many irresponsible fathers, white fathers, as it is blacks.
You're
Proportionally,
because
and in many ways it's worse in that community because it's more of them.
It's more of them. But see, here's where I'm gonna push back on Doc, because Doc, see, Miss Williams, me and Doc already talked about you before. You're gonna have to learn how to jump in here with us. You got to learn how to jump in. But reason why I'm gonna push back on Doc is because and Doc is right, man. There's just as many irresponsible white men as there are black men and any other race. But
and women
and women. You're right. Thank you, Doc. But here's where I say culture does play a role. Culture, when you're growing up in your family unit, a lot of people don't understand or distinguish this, but a lot of things you learn growing up is culturally inhibited in you. And so here's a good example. During my tenure over the Department of Juvenile Justice, we started learning, being a little bit more culturally sensitive when we had the juvenile assessment centers, which they're still around. And and Doc, you remember these days?
Yeah.
Those kids would come into the juvenile assessment center. They would go to a counselor. That counselor would be sitting there doing an assessment on them, looking them in the eye, if they could, to actually get self-disclosure so that they can kind of form an assessment on this kid to see what the problems are. Well, something that we learned through that process is when you're doing an assessment, particularly on Asian kids, and the assessor, if they're not, to some degree culturally competent, and this kid is not looking at that assessor when they're doing that assessment, then the disclosure that is taking place, that counselor is thinking that it's not truthful because this kid ain't looking me in the eye. But Asian kids it's a sign of respect not to look their elder eye to eye.
Oh, I didn't know that.
See,
I
those,
didn't know
yeah.
that. I
So
didn't know that.
when we talk about culture, that's why I look and look at the fact that, and I don't want to go too far out here when I make this statement, but when you look, hey Doc, you remember a time when a young girl would get impregnated in the South?
Yeah,
then get
and they
shipped up
sent her
north.
away.
Get up,
Yeah.
get up, get
Yeah.
up north somewhere.
Doc, didn't that have anything to do with culture? Have something to do with shame?
Yeah, it did. In fact, recently there was a story in the news about a pastor that drugged this young lady in front of the congregation
Congregation, yes, I heard
and
that.
and attempted to shame her.
Yes.
And people from the outside start protesting this church because they were saying he did not do this to the young man that was involved as well. Why wasn't he there? And see, and that's what it is. We cannot see, that's the problem with having theology as your government too, because religion is a bully. The way that most people practice it, it's not helpful. The way that most people act in their religion is not conducive to really helping anybody, because a lot of people become judge, jury, and executioner, and they are just as guilty, sometimes even more guilty than the person that they persecute. So you have to be careful with that kind of stuff. And here it was, some things came to light about other people in the church that weren't subjected to the same treatment that this young lady was. And we can't listen. Boys and girls have been getting together since time immemorial. Okay. What we've done is we've extended the length of childhood, so it looks crazy that a 22-year-old can't function and has a child. Remember, girls used to get married at 12.
Hey, Doc, repeat that, because I think that might have went over a lot of people's head when you say we've extended the period.
We've extended childhood to the 20s now, the behavior. Okay. Many of these 20-year-olds and 30 years old are still living with their parents. They say, well, we can't afford housing. You can get roommates collectively as adults. There's nothing wrong with that. What you need to do, because now out on your own, you get to make decisions and you begin to live and see what life will bring.
Okay.
When you stay at home with.
But granted, I hear what Doc is saying, but here's the other side that I'm equally an enforcer on, and that is, yeah, you're right. You see a higher percentage of young adults staying home. And I'm gonna credit to economic times, and when you look at the cost of housing and things, but like Doc said, yeah, you can go get some roommates, but here's the part that really teased me off, is that when you stay at home and your parents allow you not to pay anything.
Now that's the bad part about it.
And that is an impediment to that child's life cycle development. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so now you have a 30-year-old that can't be independent because they can't function.
They can't function. No
They
responsibility.
they don't know how to
No
wash their
life,
clothes.
Nope.
Okay.
Clean.
They don't know how to go set up the cable bill. They don't know how to set up the phone bill. They don't know how to do anything. Why? Because mom and daddy always took care of everything.
But then what
You
happens
get-
when they get out there in the real world on their own?
Exactly.
Or eats them up and spit them out. Well, one thing I always say to my kids is, I'm not going to be on this earth forever. So once I leave this earth, I need to know that you're able to take care of
That's all
yourself
yeah.
as an adult. So show me some adults' responsibilities. Take care of yourself. Get yourself in order, in line, and then I, I can go away and say, okay, you doing what you need to do.
Mhm.
And truthfully, parents handicap these kids and make them fear life. A lot of them are scared, afraid of life.
Mm,
They're afraid to get out there and try
mm,
because they never had an opportunity. They have not learned a work ethic. They have not learned any responsibility.
mm.
They don't know how to measure or learn steps to success, to achievement.
Yeah. But you know what, Doc? And you're absolutely correct on all of those cylinders. But I'm gonna be the one that always throws something else out there. And here's what I'm really refreshed at seeing in my kids. And I got a 22-year-old and an 18-year-old now. What I'm really impressed about is their ability to troubleshoot.
Mm.
Things take place now
Mhm.
in my household, and rather than me doing like I always do, and some folk, yeah, I'm the protector, I'm the guardian, but I start realizing these two girls, because like you say, I ain't gonna be here forever.
Mhm.
So when I see some of those things pop up,
Mhm.
and now everybody in the house knows we got a problem here.
Mhm. Mhm.
I sit back and I watch these two, and I try to figure out. I mean, they piss me off. I mean, they make me mad sometimes because they take their time. But I sit back, and now I've had the luxury of watching them troubleshoot this because now they're processing.
Mhm.
Daddy know what's going on,
Mhm.
but he ain't gonna jump
Mhm.
to our aid.
Mhm. Figure it out.
Figure it out.
Mhm.
And I'm gonna give you this one little scenario. Last week, my youngest, who is in the last year of high school,
Mhm.
she was driving my vehicle
Mhm.
to school,
Mhm.
and then she called me at work and told me that she lost the key.
Oh.
Well, that key she had was the backup key to the original key.
Oh no.
So the original key had been lost already.
Mhm.
So the vehicle is at the school, and you know what they do when school is over with?
Lock the gate.
Lock the gates. And so I said, you know what? I'm not gonna jump at this. I'm gonna see what she gonna do.
Mhm.
So the first night, my
Who
vehicle
called? Who? Wait a minute. Whose car was it?
it's mine.
Okay, so it's your fault.
Okay, go ahead. Let me hear this. I
It's
wanna
your
hear
fault
this.
because when the original key was lost, why didn't you go immediately and purchase a backup to replace it?
Hey, okay, so let me respond to you. That's my vehicle.
And the whole thing could have,
No,
if you had purchased that backup like a responsible adult,
Miss Williams, no, I'm gonna
if
tell
you had purchased that
my
backup like a
vehicle
responsible
that I
adult, see
when
how
I
he trying
wanna
to kick
drive
that
it,
can down the road,
and on
Queen.
top of
He
it,
trying to kick
if
the
I
can down the
lose the
road
key,
and
then
blame it on
I'ma
that
deal with
baby.
it.
But
Yeah.
if
So,
he had to replace the key instead of being the cheap joker he is,
hey,
he would have had that key, that spare key, right?
Miss
Right?
Williams,
And he
that's
could have
my
went on
vehicle.
down there,
Hey,
problem solved.
Hey, that's my
And
spare
then
vehicle.
turn to her and say,
Hey.
now you lost that key. You got to replace this one.
Hey, that's
See,
my spare. Hey, but I tell you what, she
But what
troubleshot
happened?
that. Oh, she
What?
troubleshot that because that vehicle was on school grounds, and I knew it was gonna come a point in time after a day or so.
Mhm.
They
Got to
gonna-
be moved.
It got to
or
be
you
moved or get
or
towed. Hey, you better believe she tapped into her, called her sister for a loan,
Mhm.
and got a locksmith to come on campus. And I was just listening. I'm not coming to the rescue.
Ooh. Oh. But now see.
boy, they let you kick that can down the road. Cause I'd be like, Dad, where your spare key?
And she knew I didn't have one.
Okay, and then I said, why don't you have a spare key, Dad?
Now,
See,
you
we
ain't
could
gonna tell
avoid
me
all
that
this.
driving my vehicle.
We could
No,
have,
you ain't that. Hey. See, that's why your name not Rihanna. That's why your name not Reagan. Cause you're not about to fix your mouth to ask me that question.
no, so it was
And
your
you done
fault.
lost my key.
Yeah, my vehicle too.
My vehicle key.
Hey, listen.
Hey,
That's why you do redundancy.
Okay,
They
Mr.
will try.
Redundancy.
They will try you now.
I have listen. I tell my wife this all the time. We take both car keys when we go. I say, what if we in Destin and we lose one of the keys? Now them smart keys ain't cheap.
No, they're not.
Mine is $400 a pop.
Ooh.
So imagine being up there having to pay for a locksmith and that key.
Wow.
Well, you know what? I hear what Doc's saying, and
I would let her figure it out on her
I
own,
tell
too.
my kids, y'all better go to Uncle Doc before you fix your mouth to say something to me about my vehicle.
Well, that kind of takes you back to my oldest daughter with trying to fix, and she'll pull it up on YouTube, and she'll sit there and try to figure it out before she calls my husband.
Okay.
She'll try to figure it
But
out,
that's
and then when she
troubleshooting.
can't figure, she say, "Evan, I can't figure it out. Can you come help me?" Of course, he going right on over it, but she did try it herself.
Yeah, but that's what dads do though. That's what dads do. But since you're
Hey,
talking
my-
about
hey.
figuring it out, we're at that point in stage where this is a perfect segue for us to go ahead and figure out when we're talking about responsible fatherhood. How do we get on that track to figure this out? And responsible fatherhood, we're not implying that anybody is irresponsible.
Correct.
But what we want to do is contribute to enhancing, and again, Doc don't have the number scrolling at the bottom. I know he was so into the conversation of trying to call me out, but
You see what he doing?
but we welcome. Yeah, I'm getting it back. But we welcome those fathers to join, the fathers and mothers, anybody to join the conversation, because we don't have all the answers, but what we do have is the Responsible Fatherhood Initiative, and you can call in at area code 407-921-6195 and let us know. Give us some of your thoughts about how responsible fatherhood can play a role in your life or other people's life.
So now I got it scrolling. So now let me just highlight what the 5 keys for the 5 skills are: emotional intelligence, communication skills, discipline and guidance, financial responsibility, and time management. Those are the skills that every man, every parent should learn to master in
Break
order to
down the
be
emotional intelligence, Doc. Break that down.
emotional intelligence is nothing more having the emotional understanding and temperament to respond appropriately based on what's taking place. Okay. And so some people, they say make a mountain out of a molehill. Everything is a crisis. Okay. That's a person with a low EQ or emotional quotient or emotional IQ. Because a lot of times that emotion can actually cause more problems than it helps solve. Overreacting, under responding, your child complains of an earache. And you say, sit down, you're always sick, not understanding that pain is a symptom of something in the body that's wrong.
But
And
from an emotional intelligence standpoint, it is, and this is in a coin. I'm just going to try to sum this up, Doc, and help me with this a little bit. But you're going to always have some situations that take place.
Yeah.
Those are things that, in large part, are beyond your control.
Correct.
But what is within your control
it's how you respond.
Is how you respond to it. And,
How you
and-
respond.
And here's a real life example. One of my daughters was learning how to drive. Got their permit. And my wife and my other daughter went out of town. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to have my daughter take me to breakfast on a Saturday morning and get her to driving a little bit.
Right.
We went to breakfast. She drove us to breakfast. And then we left breakfast, and this was in December. December, we often, you know, in the spirit, we'll buy those bicycles and give them to kids. So I told my daughter, I say, stop real quick, because it was one of those pawn shops that had like 10 bikes out there.
Oh, wow.
I say, stop. I got out. I say, well, pull around and park. And I'm up there talking to the guy about these bikes, and all of a sudden, heard a crash.
Oh, boy.
And I turned around, and I saw it was my vehicle.
Oh.
Well, after I ran to the truck and realized my daughter was fine, the thing that struck me the most is this situation has occurred. There's nothing I can do about it. What matters is how I respond to my daughter with this that could affect her for the rest of her life. And so when you talk about emotional intelligence, Doc,
Exactly.
it was everything within me that
Not to come out with.
And that's what I'm talking about. Was the response to the situation appropriate to the level of the situation? Because see, it's parents that would have rushed over, cussed their child out,
Yes.
and told them, you know, you're so stupid. How could you do something like that? And you know, and just went on and on. And then they would have constantly hounded that child after that.
I just got the car probably 6 months before too.
And that temperament teaches a lot to your child, how they see life and how they will deal with crisis or perceive crisis. Because in the grand scheme of things, a lot of this stuff that we encounter
You can
and
get-
blow up over,
Yeah.
it ain't even worth it.
It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Because I can tell you right now, can't any of us think of anything we were mad about in 1981? Right?
No. Hey, Doc, I hate to do this to you,
Go
but
ahead.
you go ahead and rapid fire Doc.
No, I was gonna go to communication because me, I live with my dad, and for my dad, that was one of the hardest things was actually communicating with me. He would tiptoe around things. I'm like, Dad, just say what it is you have to say. You don't have to tiptoe around nothing.
Okay, so what did that tell you?
Communication skills was not one of his forte.
But what was
No,
it?
no.
What
What
was
did it tell
that
you?
He was shying away though from. Was it something that? See, I'm gonna just tell you, my girls, when they were growing up, they thought that feminine stuff. They thought if they brought that up, it would
Like,
repulse
ew,
me
yeah.
to get out of the room or something. And you know what? Back then, it didn't repulse me, but I would leave because I was in their head. They wasn't in mine. You know. And then as they got older, and then they used that same thing, and I had to tell them. You know, I told them some years ago. I
But
said,
Miss Quee, why do you think your dad responded that way?
He just was not a communicator. I don't know what his relationship with his dad was, but I know with his mom, they used to communicate very well. So I was trying to like, Dad,
Well, somewhere in his is your father still alive?
Yes, now
Okay.
he's much better.
Okay, but ask him how he was raised, because somewhere along in his life, he was rendered voiceless. A lot of time when you have people that are hesitant about expressing themselves, that's what has occurred early in their life. Somewhere, somehow they felt voiceless. So they're hesitant to explain things. And the biggest thing I can say about communication, it ain't just communication. It's comprehension. I had to learn that. Because you can talk all day. You can tell me something all day. But if I don't understand it, it means nothing.
So Doc, to that point, and we're gonna go a little bit longer tonight, but to that point is, and I learned this through ACEs, ACE, adverse childhood experiences.
Right.
When we often see what people do, we always think to ourselves, why did you do that? Instead of thinking, what happened to you for
To make you
do
do.
something like that?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's because we rely on whimsical and anecdotal knowledge you know, and that's cultural. You know, we pass down these beliefs around certain things, and they are not rooted in fact. They're rooted in our belief. You know, it's sort of like the story about the ham and the pot. You know, everybody in the family had learned to cut the ends off the ham, and they asked the grandmother, "Why do we cut the ends off the ham before we put it in the oven?" And she said, "Child, I just cut it off because it wouldn't fit in the pot I had." But the family had learned to cut the ends off the ham, and they just did it generation to generation without thinking about it. And many, this is that's why I say, yeah, and that's why I often say that tradition can be a big prison. It can trap you doing stuff that you don't, that's not even necessary. It can give you beliefs that's not even true. But because it's tradition, and Big Mama taught me that, I'm not willing to let go of it.
Remedies.
Yeah,
Those old remedies things.
So with that being the case, and Doc, that's a good example, and I like how you brought that in because we can bring this in for Atlantic. But if tradition, and I hate to say this, but if tradition has been to where if things don't work out, my communication skills are not going to be beneficial to me because we're not going to communicate in the best interest of the child, and there's going to be a whole lot of other things that we don't do that's going to be habit forming, if you would. Yeah. So when it's habit forming, and you see that your father is not participatory or being responsible in your life, what do you do when you have children?
You have children, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's been the opposite for me, though.
And you would be surprised how much going back and doing it's called a biopsychosocial. Mm-hmm. And what you're trying to discover is what key social events happen in this person's life to give them the beliefs and the behaviors that drive them now. See, because we all respond to what we have encountered.
Right.
You know, when things are painful for us, we work hard to avoid them. When things have been successful, we want to replicate them. Even to the point where sometimes we get stuck replicating something that was successful but no longer is. This is how people get stuck, you know, and our preferences are based on what we've had success for. That's why some guys they might like women with wavy hair. Why? Because the success when they started dating was women with or girls with wavy hair.
Habit forming.
Yeah, it's habit forming. You do what works.
But you know, on one note, I can say about my dad, and this may seem a little cliche, but my dad taught me how to tie a tie.
I'm hearing more women talk about that.
Because I used to see him get dressed with ties, and I'd say, "Could you teach me how to tie a tie?" And he was like, "For what?" I was like, "I just want to learn, Dad. I might want to wear a tie one day, or I might get married and have to teach my husband how to tie a tie." And I mean,
and it's a lot of guys out there can't tie a tie.
You are absolutely correct.
And you know how I learned? You know how I learned how to tie a tie?
How?
In college, playing football with other guys.
Really?
There were guys that were on the team that were like brought up in the church, and the Peterson brothers. Those guys, you know, when Coach Tressel used to like for the team. When we travel, everybody got a jacket and a coat on and a tie. And I look up, I got a tie, but I don't know how to tie it.
Do you know how to tie a bow tie?
I haven't learned the bow tie yet.
I have.
To learn.
I don't practice enough, but I know how to do them.
So you know how to do a bow tie, Doc?
Yeah.
Wow.
So I've got several in there that I tie. So, you know, and I'm just like that. I see things I want to learn. You know, I see people do it, and I want to learn it. So I go, and it took me a while to learn that bow tie because that's not an easy one.
Automatically already tied bow tie.
I used to do them, but a real bow tie looks good though.
Hey,
a real one does.
Miss Wynn, if you would, we went over, but if you would, let people know about what's taking place with Responsible Fatherhood.
Oh, yes. This Thursday, February the 13th from 6 to 7, there will be a webinar that will
Webinar.
be webinar, excuse me, thinking of work. Responsible fatherhood, navigating time sharing and child support. And that will be facilitated by our own Walter Smith.
And this is the first in a series of self-help webinars that revolve around co-parenting, child support, Florida laws governing, I guess parenting and things of that nature.
Parenting, employment. We have a couple of series going on. So this will be our first series.
Okay, and that's once again February the 13th. February the 13th. What is that a day before, everybody? And look at Doc's face.
Listen, Doc gonna be quiet about that. I'm in the doghouse, so I'm gonna shut my mouth.
Well, hey, I'm gonna help you there. I'm not gonna let you get in trouble. Hey, but for those of you who tuned in to the sit down, once again, we're on every Monday from 6 to 6:45. Tonight, we kind of went in a little bit more than we normally do, but we like to keep you on time. But tune in every Monday from 6 to 6:45. And if you have a program, if you're doing something in the community, hey, come on into the studio and be our guest. And if you can't make it to the studio, I'm sure Doc Polite will get you in here virtually. So,
absolutely,
Ms. Wynn, you can tell everybody. I mean, go ahead and send us off. You haven't done that in a long time. Close us on out. Doc, that's nice.
That is our flyer for our event on Thursday, February the 13th from 6 to 7.
Hey,
And
ahead,
you can scan this QR code and it will take you right to the registration page and go ahead and sign up. And we only have one question on there: which county you live in, and the rest is just your name and your email. And this is great. This is going to be great for men who are ready to stop having to try to figure it out and have access to resources that are ready to help them.
Well, all right. Well, tell you what, we'll tune in once again next week and tune in for the sit down. We love to have you. Take care.